You know, there's nothing like cracking that cellophane and pulling that record out. It just smells great.
Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Non-stop hardcore energy.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Unlike any other.
With your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bod Father.
Man, this stuff rocks.
Hey everybody, this is Phil Leavitt from 7Horse, and you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour. And what an hour it is.
Damn right.
The views and opinions of the guests do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of BODS Mayhem Hour, its staff, affiliates, or sponsors. Parental discretion is advised. Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I am your host, John the Bod, aka the Bod Father, and as always, bring you guys and gals awesome interviews. And today, before I introduce our guest, please get out on YouTube's. Yes, I said the YouTubers. Get out there and subscribe to BODS Mayhem Hour. Takes 2 seconds. Click subscribe and click that notification bell. And I finally did the TikTok. Yeah, I call it TikTok. I finally made a TikTok. So go find me on there too, BODS Mayhem Hour. And I was quite shocked. My first video in 24 hours had 500 and some odd views. I was like, what? But anyway, thank you all for supporting me. And I want to bring on my guest right now, Mr. Phil Leavitt of 7Horse. 7Horse will release their new single, Try to Forget It, September 30th, with the video to follow on October 13th. Their new album, The Last Resort, will also release on November 4th. But right now, go out and check that video that's out right now, Vamonos. You want to check that out right now. So, Phil, welcome to the podcast, man, and glad to have you on here.
Thank you, John. It's great to be with you.
So let's jump right in this bad boy. How you been doing?
Should I refer to you as the Bod Father? Would that be better?
Whatever, sir. Whatever suits you.
Okay. I like it. I mean, that's great.
I got that through high school. So it wasn't just me sitting there going, I'm going to call myself the Bod Father.
Yeah, it's always better if somebody else gives you a nickname, right?
There you go. So how you been doing, man, these past 2 years? Because it's had to be crazy for you guys.
Yeah, well, it has been. I mean, everybody's been through so much over the last couple of years. I mean, I think the world has been traumatized. We maybe don't even realize, what it has cost us. But through it all, I'm happy to say that, my partner and I, Joie Calio, who I've been working with for 30 years now in 2 different bands. I mean, we started in Dada in the early 90s and started 7Horse about 10 years ago. But I'm happy to say that, we just put our head down and just kept on working and did what we could do. Obviously, we haven't been on stage in over 2 years. Almost 3 by the time we get up there in November 4th at the Roxy. It'll be just a couple months shy of 3 years. But we were able to do a lot of writing, a lot of recording, and a lot of connecting to our audience on, various platforms, including the TikTok, as you rightly noted.
You think you guys will have any stage rust or no? Because for me, when I do these interviews, it's like, it comes every day. I mean, there's nothing new to it. But yeah. You think you guys are going to have any rust, maybe, or no?
I wouldn't be surprised if there was a little. I mean, we're going to try to work it out in rehearsal. I got to be honest. I think more than anything, there'll probably be some butterflies, which I think is natural and good.
Sure.
They always say, like pro athletes, always say if you don't have butterflies, then it's time to get out of the game because you got to be a little excited. It's always a thing about when you play live, especially in a band like ours where there are no laptops, no machines running. It's all human beings playing, that the adrenaline can have an effect on what's going on out there. So you're in that constant battle within yourself to stay centered, stay focused, and do the show, and at the same time be excited. But I have a feeling when we get out there, we'll feel it, and hopefully the audience will feel it too. That'll be a good thing.
Before we dive into more of this, I want to step back here for just a minute. Now, you said you guys were in Dada for a very long time, but now after forming 7Horse, though, with you and Joie, was this like a breath of fresh air for you both, or you just guys needed a new avenue to go through, or?
Well, I tell you, I mean, it was a breath of fresh air, and it really started the project really began as almost an act of desperation, really,
Mm.
because we were trying to make a Dada record in 2010. We had been touring all through the 2000s. We were signed to a major label in the late 90s. We were at MCA Records, the Music Cemetery of America, and we made one record there, and that basically ended our career on the label side. But then I went off to Las Vegas and played in Blue Man Group for a few years. And then we came back together and got the band back together and started touring. And, we were doing it more DIY. And then around 2010, we thought, man, we really ought to make a new record. People really wanted it. But we had a guitar player that just would not come to the party. He was involved in some other things. We had studio time booked. We couldn't get him in there. We could not make a record. And when a band cannot make a record, then you really have to look at it and say, this thing has lost the mojo, because if you don't have everybody pulling on the same side of the rope, you got problems. So we had this studio time booked, and we couldn't get the band in there. And so the engineer, who we were very close with, who produced one of our records with us, said, why don't you guys just come in and do something? Just come in and we'll make something. And we were like, yeah, all right, let's do it. And so we had been talking about the blues and the roots of rock and roll and wanted to get back to that. Joey's the bass player in Dada, and he had been playing a lot of slide guitar. He'd gotten heavily into blues guitar, slide guitar, open tunings, Rolling Stones kind of approach to guitar playing. We just said, well, yeah, let's go do something, but let's turn this whole thing on its head. Let's do something completely different. And that will be a breath of fresh air for us. And so in order to do that, he was like, well, you ought to sing lead on it. And I was kind of like, what? That's not really what I do. I've been a drummer in a band for 20 years at that point, and always the third voice in the mix. Dada was a trio, two front guys singing harmony, and me in the back playing the drums and sometimes adding something. But, I started my career as a songwriter and an artist before I ever got into that band. I had in my early 20s, I had a publishing deal out here in Los Angeles, and I was on a track to become more of an artist. And I put that aside to join Dada because they were so great that I thought this is just such a great opportunity. And it turned out to be so because, we had a hit record and we were able to tour the world and all that. But at this point, it seemed clear that we needed to go in a new direction. And we just decided to take a leap of faith that we could pull it off. And the first thing we ever cut was Meth Lab Zoso Sticker. And, that's a song that ends up in an Oscar-nominated film. So you just never know how things are going to happen. But it really was like a new birth for us. We started over from ground zero. And it was very invigorating. After you've done something for so long, it's tough to start a brand new thing. You got this audience that you're trying to bring along with you. That's always a challenge. And then actually doing the gig, singing and playing drums and being the front guy was something that I'd never really done before. But I felt like I took to it like a horse to water, as they say. I really enjoyed it. And we didn't look back. We just poured everything we had into that thing and put that first record out. And it was a real exciting time to get something started new.
I like how you're excited, man. I love seeing you happy and smile on this because a lot of bands are just like, yeah, we start something new, and it's just like monotonous. It's like over and over and over. But I love seeing people who are still in the game 20 plus years and they're still happy when something new comes around. And that's so cool because that love is still there for that music.
That's what this thing is all about, man. It really is. I mean, it really, I've had enough time in this thing now. I mean, I started playing when I was 5 years old. I mean, I've been playing music my whole life. I was on the piano when I was 3. I was playing drums literally at 5. And I was on the road when I was 18. So I've been doing this. I started playing gigs around LA in clubs when I was 16. I was too young to even be in the place. I'm playing gigs there. So this is just my life. This is just how I live. And there's nothing that this business can do to me. It was never about that for me. It was, I wanted fame and fortune like everybody else. Everybody that grew up on that dream that the record industry sold to us, that this was possible. I bought into that, and that's what I wanted. And by the way, I signed a couple of record deals and I toured the world and I saw a lot of stuff and did a lot of cool things. But for me, the music has always been so deep inside that that's what keeps me going, is the love for that and the love of doing something creative with my partner, the relationship that we have, it's like a brotherhood. And yeah, the business couldn't beat that out of me as much as they tried.
What about the Blue Man Group, man? Could we ever see anything again from those guys? Come on.
Well, I mean, that was that's a great project. It came to me at an amazing time because, well, 1999, basically, we got dropped at MCA. We put our record out. We were signed there by the president of the label in 98, brought in with great fanfare, like presented to the whole company at the company Christmas party. Like, here is my signing. Here's Dada from IRS, because he was our president at IRS Records back in the 90s. And, IRS had a lot of cachet as an independent label, put out some really cool music, basically in the 80s. But by the time we got there, it was already kind of on its way out. We didn't know that. But we did have a hit there. And eventually they did go under. The president, Jay Boberg, I'm going to name him, he ended up going to MCA Records, brought us over there, like I said, with great fanfare, like in front of the whole company. I'll never forget it. I'm so happy to have these guys. This is a great band, et cetera, et cetera. And about 6 weeks after we put our first single out and it didn't really get any traction, we got called into the office and he said, guys, I have to treat you like every other artist on this label. And so we're going to have to let you go.
Oh, man.
So at that point, lost a record deal, got a divorce, went bankrupt, lost everything. My apartment on the beach in Malibu, gone. The motorcycle, gone. The wife, gone. And, just trying to figure out how I'm going to survive. What do I do? I hadn't had a job in I don't know how long. I got a call from my accountant one day who said, hey, you don't have any money. I don't know if you realize this, but you're broke. I was like, yeah, I do. He says, I got something for you. Call this guy. He's in Burbank. He runs a delivery service. He can put you on. You need a job. So I called him. And the next thing I know, I was wearing a shirt that said Speedy Delivery on it. And I was driving around LA in my car back in the day with, packages. And and this is no joke. This is a true story. My first stop on that job was the A&R department of MCA Records.
Oh, no.
So I come up, I cut off the elevator and the receptionist sees me, my face, she recognizes me. And she goes, hey, what's going on? What are you doing? And then she looks down, she sees Speedy Delivery. She's like, oh. And I go, here you go. It's a CD. So it was a low point. And at that point, I really, I didn't really know what to do. And flipped open the LA Weekly one day and there was an ad for the Blue Man Group, open call, send your stuff in. So I sent them a package and, I got a call to audition, ended up getting the gig, going to New York, and starting a whole new thing, and ended up back in my hometown, Las Vegas, to open the show at the Luxor in 2000. So you just never know how things are going to happen. And what an amazing experience to play with those guys, because it was musicians from all over the country, rock and roll guys. They didn't want like theater people. They wanted rock people. Yeah. So it was an insane crew, like amazing drummers in that show, and every one of them completely out of his mind. And so, we're in Las Vegas, which was a playground to us, because we'd get through the show at midnight and then we'd go out and, we'd get in just before the sun came up. That was our nightly. It arrived just at the right time, totally saved my ass. And, put me into something, because I always like to be a part of something. I like to collaborate. I like to be a part of a group. And this was a big group and they were mounting this incredible show. And it was something that I'd never done before. I hadn't really done any theater. And in a rock, it's a drum army. There were 6 or 5 drummers playing, or four drummers and 3 other band. It's a 7-piece band with 4 drummers. So it was a big wall of percussion. And then, of course, the blue guys down on stage. And I did it for a couple of years, and it was a great experience. And then I couldn't stick with it because I wanted to make original music, and I came back to LA to make more records and stuff. But at the time, man, and I still have friends out there who are still in the show that never left 20 plus years later. But for me, it was a short stint, but it was really on time because I needed that. I needed a break, and I got it from them.
So when this interview airs, this song's already going to be out, probably a couple more as well. So how excited are you guys right now to see the upcoming single, Try to Forget It? You know, how excited are you guys to get that out also?
I'm stoked, man. This to me is one of my favorite songs on the record. It was a real, I think the recording is great. The record itself, because you got the song and you have the record, and I think the record of this is really good. I love the ending. It's got a Who-ish inspired Bob O'Reilly outro. And I think that the lyric is cool and the melody and the groove. It's right down Main Street for us groove wise. We do this kind of like swaggering, swampy, Zeppelin-esque rock groove. We do that a fair amount, this kind of like halftime, like when the levee breaks style of a groove. Wow. And that's kind of one of our, you find it on Meth Lab. And then it kind of shows up here too. I think it's a cool song, and I'm excited for our audience and other, new people to hear it. Yeah, man, I always get excited when we put anything out, man. It's like, that's like when you let it go and put it out there, that's the best moment. That's probably the last time I ever listened to it. I listened to stuff 500 times before it comes out, and then probably never again, or like 10 years later, I'll listen to it again. But this is my favorite time. It's like a baseball team during spring training where everybody thinks they can win the World Series.
Yeah.
And that's what it's like when you're about ready to put a record out. Like anything could happen. You never know. It could end up in a movie. Martin Scorsese could call. It could, it could blow up. And that kind of hope is something that I ride on a lot because that's just part of, being an artist and being an entrepreneur, being your own boss. You just take a shot with something and you hope that it resonates with people. And we're pretty excited about it. We think the video is pretty cool too.
It's like you guys are in the studio for months writing these songs and seeing them develop from infancy to, adulthood now to going out to everybody's ears to hear it. And I know it's a little nervous, but so far, man, on Vamonos, and we're going to talk about that here in just a little bit. How's the feedback on that so far from the fans and everything?
As we talk today, then this is before the video's coming out for that on this Thursday. So they haven't seen that quite yet. I don't think they're ready for what they're about to see on this video, to be honest with you, because I'm performing in a way they've never seen me perform before. Yeah. First of all, I'm on my feet, standing up, and sort of like lead singing, performing. Usually I'm back at the drums. But from the track perspective, we always surprise our audience. And I think that they're pretty adventurous. So that's what's cool about them is they're willing to go on these little journeys with us because we dabble in all kinds of different styles, I would say. And this definitely has, this Afro-Cuban Latin beat. It's got this 3-clave pulse. If you want to get technical, this bump, 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 bump. That's an Afro-Cuban clave pulse, which you don't hear that much in rock. It is the basis of rock and roll in a lot of ways. Bo Diddley, you're going back to that kind of the blues, blues rock. That's where that's from, bump, don't, bump, the bump, bump, right? So that same pulse is in Vamonos. So there's a connection there back to, back to all the way back. And our, they don't expect us to be singing in Spanish. I don't expect to be singing in Spanish. I don't know why I'm doing it, but I am. But so far, the audience reaction's been really cool. I think, we write a lot of big anthems. Go ahead. I know you're about to say something.
Oh, no, it just, when you're doing that little beat there, I instantly thought of, my God, and we lost him way too soon, which Waylon Jennings and Buddy Holly flipped that coin to see who's going to be playing.
Right.
But that made me think of Buddy Holly and the Crickets.
Sure.
That's
all that.
I can't think
you're
of
talking about. You're talking about
everything.
I'm gonna tell you how it's gonna be.
Yes.
Not fade away.
Yes.
Not fade away.
There you go.
I mean that's that beat that 3 pulse against 2 is so primitive, man. It's African. I mean, it goes all the way back. That's why rock and roll is so deep. The culture of it,
Mm.
the blues connection, and how it melds with country. That's rock and roll. You know, the blues and country music coming together. Um, that pulse, you hear it in Buddy Holly, but it goes all the way back. And so you know, we're that's a beat that makes people move. They can't help
Oh
it.
yeah.
It's you know, it's just it hits your DNA or something. It's in there. It's, as human beings, we can't resist that.
It just sent chills up me. Me and you sitting here talking about Buddy Holly and that beat and everything. I mean, honestly, I got chills up on me right now.
I mean, it's amazing when you think about the timeline
Sure.
and the, you know, the connection to be a part of that as a musician. It means so much to me. You know, it's like the people that laid the groundwork for all this stuff that we do. I always respect that. I always think about that, and I always like to honor that whenever we put music out, whenever we're recording. You know, we go back to those influences all the time. And that's not, you know, that was two generations before me. You know, that's
Sure.
not my stuff at all. I mean, I did grow up listening to the Beatles, and the Stones and the 70s classics. And then the Police was the other band that like just took my head off. I got so into Stuart Copeland and all that. But the roots of it, you know, the African American roots, the blues, the country roots, the melding of that, that's, you know, rock and roll. And that's what we all owe a debt to who make
Yeah.
this kind of music. And I don't care if you're making metal, hard rock, more rock and roll like we do. It's all connected, man. It's all one family.
Yeah, people are they're kind of taken back when I say I love Buddy Holly or I like Ricky Valens or you know stuff like that, and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, man,
Yeah.
that's when it was pure. That's when music to me
Yeah.
was absolutely pure and not, you know, added in effects and things like that. That was true, legit. What you heard is what you got."
It's a high level of talent too and
Yes.
skill that those guys had. I mean, when you think about the kind of equipment that they played on, the kind of primitive sort of setups that they would have to deal with when they're on the road. You think about even the Beatles at Shea Stadium, 58,000 people, no monitors,
Right.
you know, singing in tune against that kind of noise coming at them. As a singer, it's phenomenal when you think about that. That was just how they did it back then. We have it so easy in comparison. Auto tune, I mean, you
Yeah.
know, all all of that. But yeah, man, it's those are the days when the storytelling was really at its peak. You know, that's when it was all developed. The style, how to write lyrics for rock and roll that's the 50s. That's how Chuck Berry showed us how to do that, you know, Buddy Holly. Um, yeah, that music is great, and it's always great to go back to it because it's timeless, and it's the genesis for everything that we've heard since, whether it's, you know, the Sex Pistols or Black Sabbath or Idols or you know, Corrosion of Conformity. It's
Yes,
all
sir.
connected, man. It's connected.
The album The Last Resort will release on November the 4th and is the band's 5th album. How excited are you guys to add another album to the 7Horse music library? And did you think there'd be a 5th album added?
Well, you know, how excited am I? Well, you can tell. I'm pretty excited. You know, my partner Joey always said it was going to take us 5 albums to really get it nailed down, and I think he might be right. I mean, we made a great first record, and in a lot of ways, first records are the easiest to make because you're so pent up. You know, you really have this idea that you want to get out there, and so we did that. And I'd been through follow-ups before because Dada made a great first record that was very successful. And I'm sure you've heard of the sophomore slump, and that's a real thing. It's hard to follow up. Second albums are really hard because you've spent all this time getting ready for the first one, and now you've got to come back with something. But by the time you get to number 5, you've really had time to develop what you do and explore, you know, deeper into the style of what it is, how to bring different elements into your style, to how to communicate with your audience. It's taken us a while anyway. I mean, I don't know, maybe other people just just get rolling and never stop. But for us, we needed some time. We needed to make a few records. And I like the other stuff too. I think our second, third, and fourth records are cool. But there is something about this one. The way the songs were written, the way we did it, we basically wrote it here in my house downstairs. I'm in LA. I have one of the rare houses in LA. It was built in 1925, and it's got a basement. So we've got gear set up down there, no PA, just instruments, and we can sing loud enough to get over the top of it if we don't play too loud. And that's how we write most of the time, is we'll go down there and jam out ideas, and we'll come up and in the evening write lyrics. And then a lot of times I'll wake up at 4 a.m. and start writing lyrics, and weird things like that happen. That's always a good time for me to write, like right at the crack of dawn, before your brain is really clicking on all cylinders. You're in this kind of halfway point between unconscious and awake, and that's when a lot of stuff comes. But everything that was going on at that time, the lockdown, the pandemic, the isolation, and the last resort really is your imagination. It's the internal world, and that's where we all had to kind of turn when the outer world was closed off from us. We had nowhere to go. We could not reach it. No music to go see. Nothing out there. You can't go to baseball games. You can't party with your friends. It was all, we all remember what it was like. But at that point, the internal world kicks in, and that's where all these songs came from. It's pure imagination, fantasy, ideas about traveling to different countries, visiting different things, supernatural visitations.
Yeah.
All this stuff starts happening when you're isolated. And that's, everybody, I think a lot of artists have made a pandemic record, and I guess this is ours in a way.
Going back to this album though, you said, sometimes the fifth album you hit your stride. Would you, and I don't mean this in a bad way or negative way, I just mean this as a musicianship. Would you think that these like 5+ albums into your career, especially with this band, would you say it's maturity?
Yeah, I would say it's maturity, confidence. It takes a while, especially, look, if you've spent 20 years in a band where you're the rhythm section, the bass player and the drummer, which is what we were.
Mm-hmm.
And it's those two guys, the guitar player and Joey up front. It takes a while to even allow yourself, me as the drummer, to go, okay, now I'm going to front this thing. It's not like just flipping a switch.
No.
It takes some reps to, it's like starting at quarterback in the NFL. All of a sudden, you're looking at the defense. That's the audience, and it's like I gotta deal with these people now. Whereas before, I'm in the back. I'm just doing my thing, and whatever's happening out there is I'm not really connected to it as much. But now the drums are down on the lip of the stage, and I'm dealing with people. So there's that aspect of it from a live perspective. But in the studio, yeah, it takes a while to look. I didn't have any singing technique. It takes some technique to really be a good singer. I mean, I'm not saying it's opera or classical music, but there are things you can do to improve. And as songwriters, it evolves over time, and the more you do it, the better you get, and you arrive at this point where you feel like, yeah, I think we finally hit on something that really feels like this is the best effort we can make right now. And I'm not saying it won't get better. I think it should continue to improve.
Yeah.
That's my goal. I don't know. I mean, a lot of artists, it seems like they peak relatively early and then it's all downhill after that. I'd like to not be that way.
That's true.
But we always feel like we're just getting started. So I think that's why I still have that enthusiasm, because that's kind of how I approach it. Like, I'm just starting. Now, eventually I'm going to be dead. but I'll keep that attitude as long as I can, that I think there's something great in being a beginner. I'm just getting into it. I'm just finding my way into it. If I keep telling myself that, I just keep getting better. And that's how I approach it.
The album release show is November 4th at the Roxy. How special is this, doing this at the Roxy for you guys?
Well, this is, it's a big deal for us because, look, as I mentioned earlier, I've been playing music in LA since I was 16 in clubs. And the Roxy is a great room. It's a relatively small room, 500 cap room. But I've played there before, played there in the 90s with Dada, played there a lot. It's a legendary room here in LA. It's kind of the Roxy and the Troubadour are the two of that size that really carry that cachet about them. Now, this thing we did a little, we operate a little differently than a lot of bands in that for this show, we just bought out the room. We rented the building, basically. I didn't work with a promoter. I wanted to do, because I didn't think a promoter would give us the kind of parameters that we wanted to do this show under. We wanted to do a more immersive experience. We wanted to bring, we've got this incredible art that's part of the presentation of this record. Wood Simmons is the artist who's doing the cover art for the singles and the album package, and he's doing some t-shirt designs for us, and it's really cool stuff. And we wanted to bring that into the building with video and really make it an event to celebrate the release of this record. So to be doing it there at the Roxy on our own dime, which is a pretty big risk to it's not cheap to rent a building like that and to put on a show there yourself. It's a very exciting thing. It's like this will only happen once. That's what's cool about it. In a lot of, there's all kinds of gigs, but this thing is only going to happen one time, one night in one room here in Los Angeles. And that's what we're trying to convince our audience to come out and see this thing from all over the country, because, yeah, you can tour, but it's not going to be like this, at least right now. We need a much bigger budget to take this show around the country. When we do tour, we're going to put on a great show in whatever club we're in. But to do the video and to do that kind of immersive experience that we're trying to create, we need to do it here at home. That room was opened by Neil Young with a 3-night stand, opened the Roxy.
Oh, wow.
In I think 1973. There's been 20 live albums made there. Everybody's played there, from Guns N' Roses to I don't know. I mean, the list is long. But I'm really excited about going back in there because it's a great music room, and it's got a legendary vibe. Yeah, the history. Obviously I'm into all that.
Yeah.
So anytime I can get into a room, the last gig we did was at the Troubadour.
Oh.
That was in January of 2020. And anytime you're in a room like that, and they got the pictures on the wall, or you can read about the history, I'm really into the connection to the past. And to be a part of that long line of artists that have come through there is always really exciting to me.
This is my favorite part of this interview right here, folks. I'm digging this interview right now, but this right here is up my alley, as well as music like paranormal stuff, these interventions, not interventions, but these premonitions type deal. This is gonna be a good one here. You dreamed about racing your Ferrari through some town you never been to, so you picked up a hitchhiker. At least you thought you did, feel.
Yes.
When you turned, what? I mean, did this just come out of nowhere?
Yeah, this is one of those 4 a.m. things. Now we had been playing around with this riff. We sometimes we go on Facebook Live or Instagram Live, and we'll just jam for whoever's watching, right? So one day we were on Facebook and just fooling around, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I start playing this groove that is actually in this. I've never played this beat before in my life like this, and it was a spontaneous expression. This tom-tom groove, boom, da boom, bum, da boom, da boom, ba boom, da boom. This loping thing that had that 3 pulse in it, and so in response to that, Joey starts going bow, 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 da 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 down, down. So we had that riff going. Now I go to bed that night, and it's one of these, like, I'm having this crazy. It's like, is it a dream or is it a nightmare? It's one of these very fitful night's sleep. And in this dream, I'm in a Ferrari. I don't have one. I'm driving around in Spain, in the hills of Valencia. I've never been there. I have been to Spain, but it's been forever, and I've never been where I'm dreaming about. At least I think it's Spain. I'm saying now that it was. I don't know where the fuck it was.
We'll say it's Spain.
Yeah. And in the dream, I see this girl on the side of the road, and I flip around in my Ferrari and I pick her up. Except that when I start talking to her, she's not there. She disappears.
Oh.
And so now I'm like, what is going on here? And so out of that, at like 5 in the morning when I woke up, like out of this dream, and I grabbed my phone because I'll write on my phone, and I just start writing verses, and it's all about, what I just experienced. And is it real? And I guess it goes back to this idea that we're isolated, we can't go anywhere. And I'm dreaming about getting out, getting away. And the only thing I can think to say is, Vamonos, let's go, Vamonos. Now, I don't speak Spanish, really. I mean, I've heard Spanish all my life because growing up in Los Angeles, you hear a lot of Spanish. It's part of the culture here. It's part of LA culture is Mexican American culture. These things are integrated 100%. We all partake of that culture here in Los Angeles. Taco trucks, the holidays, the Day of the Dead.
Yes.
We are aware of all that out here all the time. And so I've heard plenty of Spanish in my life. And for some reason, I start going, hey, vamonos. So I'm singing that. I don't even know why I'm singing it. I don't know how it relates to this story, but I figure there's got to be a way to connect it. And I don't really know, what happens in that song, to be honest with you. It's about a guy, this goes back to a country song, too. I don't know if you know this song. There's a guy named Marty Robbins.
Yeah.
A song called El Paso.
Yeah.
Out in the West Texas town of El Paso. So I like these kind of songs, these sort of ballads that tell a story about a place, and he meets a girl, and I don't even know all the details. I can't remember all the details, but I'm thinking about that song for some reason while I'm writing this song. And this idea of writing this kind of ballad-esque tale about a ghostly figure. I wanted to write something supernatural. I wanted it to have a supernatural characteristic to it because I like it's one thing to write a song about, I picked up this hitchhiker and then we did it in the back seat. But I wanted it to be a little bit more, ephemeral, for lack of a better word. Like, what happened actually? I don't know. Was she real? I don't know. It seemed real at the time, but then she wasn't there. And I feel like I lost something. I don't even know if I ever had it. So, that's kind of where it's coming from. And there's something about that chorus that we always imagined, 50,000 people in a soccer stadium going, hey, vamonos. That's the kind of stuff we like to fantasize about. We write these big sort of chanting sing-alongs, hoping that we're going to get a stadium full of people to do it.
Sure.
Whether we do or we don't, who knows? But that's what, we always kind of have that in the back of our mind. So that's where that came from. And it turned out that the lyric went really well with the music, and it's got this kind of Spanish flavor to it. But again, I think our audience was kind of like, where are these guys coming from? Because they've never done anything like this before,
It's like the Highwayman, man. They've got some eerie songs. Love the Highway.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a great project. I don't even know if our audience understands the whole supernatural element. I've been trying to tell that story a little bit so they get it. But sometimes you're visited by things when you're songwriting that you don't know where they come from. And this was one of those times.
God, there's a country song. It's on top of my mind. I just can't think of the freaking name of it right now. They talk about Hank Sr., a hitchhiker. They pick him up.
Oh, right. I think I know that song.
Yeah, they pick him up, and it's like they're talking. He's like, so you got to sell your soul. You got to lose weight and all this stuff. You got to make the road life and all that stuff. And it's like he turns around and Hank's gone. It's kind of
it's kind of like that. Yeah.
So what about Hey Vamonos though? What was it that led this track to be the first one released by you guys? Was it just all of everything that happened with it?
Well, it wasn't. It wasn't that Hey Vamonos is the second single. We released a track about 6 weeks ago, a song called Hippies on Acid.
Oh, okay.
That was the first track. Then we put Vamonos out. We're on a 6-week release schedule. So Hippies on Acid was first. That one did really well and has a wild video attached to it as well. That's pretty cool. That one, Joey sings lead. And, we write a lot of songs about drugs, I've noticed. We got Meth Lab Zoso Sticker, Hippies on Acid. We got A Friend in Weed. We got another song that talks about, it's called Kodiak Nights. It was about a gig I had in Kodiak, Alaska for 2 months where there were just mountains of cocaine all over the place. So we have a lot of drugs in our music, but sex, drugs, and rock and roll is still good.
There you go.
So we if you look at our song titles, it's like, wow, there's a lot of drugs in this band, and I've done my fair share, but I gotta moderate a little bit at this point. But yeah, Hippies on Acid was first, and then Vamonos, and now Try to Forget It will be next. And that's sort of like both a suggestion to people about how we're going to deal with what went on the last 2 years and other painful things that happen in life. But it's also a challenge, like try to forget this song. I bet you can't. Try to forget it. Just try.
Hey man, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
If it's working, don't fix it.
Yeah.
So are these all brand new songs, Phil, or any songs that didn't make the previous album, or maybe just left in the 7Horse vault?
There's the closer on this record is a song called Walking Free. And we released that as a single right as the pandemic started. That was in January of 2020 or February. That's the only track that's not brand new. That one has been out. But we're tagging it on the end of this album because it just works perfectly as a closer. I mean, we still love records, albums. We love them still. We like, and we hope that our audience, will take the 35 minutes or whatever it is to listen down to this thing when it comes out, like we all used to do with the headphones on at dark room,
Yes, sir.
That's how we listen to music still. So we make records for people that like to listen to records, but at the same time, we put them out digitally as singles, etc. But yeah, everything's new. Yeah, they're all brand new songs, and I think we've hit a high bar for us as far as what we're doing in recording, and I think it sets us up, to follow it up with something even cooler next time.
So were there any tracks that didn't make this album that we could see on another album from you guys, or an EP possibly?
Yeah, we're sitting on some stuff. We released a bunch of stuff as singles in 2020 and 2021 that we feel like we should compile as a release, maybe with a couple of new tracks. But we're not, we're sitting on a ton of ideas. We always have, we're constantly recording ideas. And then what we do is, we'll get together. He lives in Seattle, so he comes down here, and then we'll do like what we call the Phone Showdown. So we'll sit across from each other. Each of us will open up the phone audio files, and say, all right, what do you got? And then he'll play one, and then I'll play one, and we'll go, all right, well, let's work on that. Let's try to develop that. Then we'll take it downstairs. We got the riff or the main part, whatever it was, and we develop it, and then we start writing lyrics to it. So it's a very, the first step, though, is always like, let's have the showdown of ideas, and let's let the best ideas win. So there's always all kinds of stuff that never even gets made because one of us didn't like it, or and then sometimes you'll try to sell that again the next time. Like, remember that thing I showed you that last time? We didn't do it, but take another listen. I really think this is good. So we have this kind of give and take a lot. But whatever ends up getting made usually is stuff we're pretty well committed to, because it doesn't get out of that room down there and into this, because studio time's expensive and we're on a tight budget always. So we don't tend to record a lot of extras and leave them lying around. We tend to develop a lot of stuff here at the house. And then if we're going to record it, it's coming out on a record. It's got to get to that point.
Was there a track on this album that you were working on that totally ended up sounding different than what it was intended to? Was there one track that just kept changing maybe, or did they all do it?
Yeah, man, they all do it, because what happens is you have an idea of what you're looking to do. Then you take it in. We work with a guy named Dave Way, who is a 4-time Grammy Award-winning engineer, mixer, and producer. Very musical guy. We've got some other people that we bring in as side musicians that play keyboards and do some stuff that we don't do. We do a lot of things. We play a lot of instruments between us, but sometimes you want a different feel on it or something. So whenever you bring in another person into the mix, things have a tendency to develop and change. And then when you get in there and start cutting tracks, you just want to follow it. You don't want to come in with too many preconceived ideas, for us anyway, the kind of band we are, of where it has to be. You don't want to come in thinking it's got to be like this. You have an idea of what it sounds like in your head, but you want to let that thing happen in the moment. And sometimes it takes a spin that you weren't, expecting. We did prepare though pretty well for this downstairs, like as a 2-piece, because we will cut the drums and the main guitar together and try to capture that energy that we have together. That's the basis for every track we cut. Now, sometimes we play to a click track to get that perfect metronomic time. Sometimes we don't, and we just let it swing, just like they used to in the old days. And that presents a lot of it, that's a big challenge because then you really have to be good, because there's not a lot of editing to that, because it's not on the grid, it's like it's free. So you really have to be good when you're doing it that way. And we've got a couple of those on this record. And those are always some of my favorites because you can hear the humanity in it, that gets kind of sucked out when you put everything into a Pro Tools rig and make sure it's all perfect. It's like I try to walk that line where we don't want too much perfection.
What about when you guys go on tour? Is it just going to be you and Joe? Are you going to add anybody else possibly or no?
Yeah, we do it a lot of different ways. Now, if we're out as a support act, like I don't know if you know the band, the Cadillac 3.
No,
they're out in Nashville, Southern rock band. I mean, we've done, we can go out and do like a 40-minute support slot as a two-piece and crush it. And it's cool because it's such a small footprint on stage. We're on and off, easy for the headliner to deal with. We don't have to put 5 guys on stage. So we do it as a two-piece. We do it as a 3-piece with a bass player. We played the Troubadour as a 4-piece. We added a keyboard player. We're going to do the Roxy as a 5-piece with a second guitar player and singer and make a much bigger sound because we just want a bigger production that night. So we have a lot of flexibility on how we present what we do. I think my favorite lineup thus far is probably as a 4-piece because I like having the Hammond organ in the mix and some of the Wurlitzer keyboards. But it rocks as a 3-piece and it crushes as a two-piece, man. It's awesome. It's so raw, it's so stripped down as a 2-piece. When we do it like that, it's just like the essence of what this thing is. Not a lot of backing vocal, just guitar, drums, voice. If you can do it like that and get across to people, you've really done something, I think.
So taking it down the road though, or is there any songs that you want to add to that live set that's not been played live yet?
Oh yeah, man, a lot of stuff. I mean, the show at the Roxy is going to be the first time we play any of the new material off the new record live. We have a pretty deep catalog now. It's about 70 songs plus some covers. So we have a lot of variety that we can put in our set list. Some of them, you find out over time, some work better than others. Some really resonate with the audience. They love it. I mean, we do this country thing called A Friend in Weed. That's about Weed, California. We were driving to there was a festival up there called now Weed is up near the border of California and Oregon. It's a small town. It's basically you stop at the gas station on your way to Oregon, right off Interstate 5. But they had a music festival there called the 4 and 20 Blackbird Festival because they're doing everything they can to sell the town of weed. So you go to the gas station there, everything's got 420 on it, pot leaves, weed, but it's not actually the town is named after this guy who was an industrialist, a lumber guy called Abner Weed, which I found out more than anybody should know about the town of Weed. Anyway, we wrote a song called A Friend in Weed is a Friend Indeed when we went up there to play at this festival. We wrote it in the van on the way up there. They loved it. And it's just a funny song about weed done in a real kind of Rolling Stones country kind of approach. So we do that as a 2-piece, and that's in the show a lot. And that always gets, people, like you start singing about a friend in weed is a friend indeed. People love it.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. So what do you hope everyone takes away while listening to this new album when it comes out, or these new singles, or just any of 7Horse music in general? Phil, what do you hope they get from you?
Here's the thing about 7Horse, man. Let's not take life too seriously.
Exactly.
First of all, let's have a good time. Let's have a good time. It's all we've got. Let's enjoy ourselves because, man, life is hard.
Yes.
So 7Horse is about escape. I mean, plain and simple. Lately we've been called an art rock band. Okay, I'll take it. I don't know what category that puts us in. I mean, we're a rock and roll band. But we're very creative. We let our imagination just flow. We'll take you on a trip to different places in the world, in the universe. If you're willing to go on the trip with us and put on a pair of headphones and lie back and just sink into the music. I mean, that's that old school way of listening. Yeah, there's some, look, we have this kind of swaggering rock attitude that I think people like, that when they hear a song that makes them feel badass, everybody likes that. Everybody likes to feel like a badass. And that's what Meth Lab Zoso Sticker, that's why that song ends up in movies. And, it basically, somebody told me once that anytime you have something in slow motion, if you put that song up against it, it works. Guys walking down the street in slow motion, kids in slow motion. So we've had that thing licensed in, The Wolf of Wall Street and in the Netflix movie Home Team that was out last year, which is about kids football. So it's like the opposite ends of the spectrum. Oh, yeah. But that's, we have this kind of like badass kind of barroom. I grew up in Vegas around gamblers and hookers and cocktail waitresses and my dad was a blackjack dealer. I grew up crawling underneath crap tables. My first job was as a busboy at the old Stardust Hotel when I was 14 years old.
Nice.
So there's that element of showbiz in it. I can't help that that's how I grew up, sequins jackets, Liberace, Elvis at the Hilton. That was all happening when I was 6, 7, 8 years old. That was what was going on in Las Vegas. Then I went out there and spent some time in the Blue Man Group. So, Vegas is always a part of my thing. My partner comes from San Francisco, the 70s, the rock scene. That's where he grew up, seeing Queen up close.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
At some of the Winterland, the old rock club in San Francisco, Johnny Winter, Queen, real close, like right there, in the 70s. So we come from that old school of rock, and not the school of rock, but the old school of rock. We come from that. So I'm looking for people to have that same experience that I had when I was a kid, when I put on records and, put the headphones on and stared at the cover for an hour. I mean, that's how I remember listening to music, where you just have the vinyl and you just be so into it. I know it's a different time and people don't have the time for that anymore a lot, but we make records for people that do, who want to go there. And we want to take you on a brain trip. We want to take you somewhere where you come out the other side. I mean, we always try to, I know this is a long answer too, John, but
that's fine.
I always try to appeal to people below the belt first. I want this thing to move you. Our music has to groove. It's got to have a groove. But then if you want to go deeper, and if you want to pay attention to what I'm saying or what Joey's singing, the lyrics, there are messages in there. It is about something, but I don't want to make that that's not the first order of business. The first order of business is it's got to make you feel good. And then you can think about it and see what it means to you. But at the end of the day, man, I just want to put a smile on people's face. I'm an entertainer, and I love that. And, that's what it's all about, is to give people a break, because everybody's up against it. We all need something to escape to. And that's what 7Horse is about.
My last question, I've got to know this, man. You guys have a podcast, and your first episode was rating your own songs, man. How difficult was that, or no?
The podcast was really was a labor of love, really, because we realized, okay, we can't perform. We're not going to be able to see our audience at all. We wanted to give them as much value. I mean, we never made a dime from the podcast. We gave that away basically to our audience just to let them in. It's a different world than the one we came up in. And running your own band now as an independent artist, being a truly independent artist, which we are, there's no record company involved here. There's no corporate money in this thing. It's a small business. It's a mom and pop. And I don't know which one of us is mom, but it is a mom and pop business. The merchandise, the shows, the records, we're making it all ourselves and trying to figure out a way to pay for it all. So we wanted to let the audience in a little bit behind the scenes on a deeper level. And then we realized, hey, this is a great time to start talking to people because everybody's at home. Yep. And we were able to get some pretty interesting guests, people that we've worked with in the past. And as a matter of fact, we did an interview with our old record company president, Miles Copeland, who is a legend in the business and a real character. And it was a fascinating conversation with him because we got to, it's very rare that a band who was signed to a label 25 years ago gets to get their record company president and just give him the third degree, which basically we did. Because, in 1992, we turned in a record that had a hit single on it and was a great record. And it did have a lot of success, but right at the point where it was about to cross over to like major success, the company dropped the ball and didn't really deliver the goods for us. Having said that, we had an amazing experience there. And, we toured the world with Sting that year. So I can't complain too much, but it was pretty fun to say, so why'd you guys fuck that up? What happened? Why did you do that? Why'd you fire that guy right then? And it was also amazing to hear him, because I asked him point blank, I was like, what do you remember about us? Because we were just kids, just starting. Do you remember our band? This is a guy who was our label president at the time. And he was basically like, no, not really. I don't really remember that much. He was more concerned about what kind of bonus he was making. And, he was managing Sting at the time too. So
wow.
he had other concerns. But we talked to him. We talked to our old manager. We talked to various other musician friends of ours. We talked to a great blues guitarist. Bob Margolin is a great character, guy who came up in Boston and started playing with Muddy Waters in the 70s. So, he was there for all that stuff and, jamming with Dylan and doing all this amazing stuff in San Francisco on that show. So we talked to some pretty cool people. But man, I have a lot of respect for a guy like you, because putting a podcast together is no joke.
That's exactly right.
The editing will, it's a big job. And I was doing that all myself. But it gave me something to do during that time when we were just locked down. And, we really enjoyed it. Maybe we'll bring it back. We haven't done an episode this year. Because we're working on this record stuff. You can only do so much. But man, it's a big undertaking to really do a good podcast.
It's a labor of love, and I love it. I get frustrated because I don't get certain interviews, and that comes with the territory,
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like my interviews and my content is good, and I would put up against anybody. I'm not arrogant. I'm just confident. I ask good questions, and
You know what's good about you, man? You ask good questions and you let the guest answer, and that's something that doesn't happen a lot. And I had to learn that, because I was bad at jumping in and cutting people off and trying to redirect it. And then I'd listen back to the raw stuff and I go, oh my God, you got to shut up, man. I'd cut myself out. But, how about, I got to ask you a question now, though, because I know this podcast is more about like harder rock, right? Hard rock and metal. Is that correct?
Horror, punk, all that good stuff. Yeah.
Because, we're rock and roll. So we're a little bit outside the wheelhouse of this podcast. Am I right?
No, not really. Rock and roll fits in, heavy metal, all that good stuff, man. If a band truly likes my podcast and wants on here, I'll have them on here. I'm not, I've even had rap on here before. So I just like people that takes time out and spends 15, 20 minutes listening to my podcast or whatever. I just appreciate that, and gives me a follow. Follow me, folks, on YouTube and TikTok.
Follow this man. Follow him.
Yes.
He deserves to be followed. You're doing a good job here, man.
I appreciate it. And like I said, I'm not arrogant or I'm not cocky. I'm just confident. And, I feel like, and everybody's told me, I have great questions and I have good content. And like you said, the biggest part is not interrupting anybody. And before I got into podcasting, I watched a guy who had Joey Jordison and Jason Newsted, which thank God I was able to interview those guys on here before.
Wow.
But he kept like Joey was talking, Phil, and I was interested in what Joey was saying, and he would just like butt right in and just kill the whole thing what Joey was saying. I was like, I want to reach through this computer screen and just stop, dude. Let him talk. He did Jason Newsted. Jason freaking Newsted from Metallica.
Yeah.
He's telling you stories of Metallica stuff, man, that we don't get to hear.
Right.
And he interrupts him. I'm like, oh my God. I commented on that post on the interview he posted. I said, stop interrupting people. And I've never done that.
That's a good one to learn. That's a good one to learn, and makes you a real good listener, because then you really focused on what somebody's saying. It's great for everybody to learn that, and it had doing a podcast kind of brought that home to me. Like when I'm talking to somebody now, I realize just listen. People really appreciate that when they are heard. We could all learn about that.
And you can find more questions to ask during those
Right.
when they're talking, because if you only have a couple of questions, and hey, if you just listen to somebody, you can find more questions to ask right there.
Sure.
Podcasting 101 with John the Bod. All right, folks, you want to get out and check out 7Horse. They will release their new single, Try to Forget It, on September 30th, which this interview will probably should post, but around October. I'll say mid-October, last week of October, so that way we'll have all this in here. And check out all their stuff. Their new album, The Last Resort, that comes out November 4th. Give this band a fair shot, folks. Please do it for me. And Phil, how could folks stay in touch with 7Horse? Buy anything and everything, tour dates, all that good stuff.
7horsemusic.com. That's the website. That's where, you'll find all that. Of course, we're up on every social media platform you can imagine. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. I try to get over to Twitter occasionally and drop some non sequitur there. Our YouTube, we're everywhere. Everywhere you're supposed to be, we're there. But the website's the home for, the merch store and all that. So go there, but, follow us on Spotify and keep up with us on Facebook. Everything's a little bit different. The kind of content we put up can vary from platform to platform, but it's all connected. And, and even better, come see us when we come to your town, because that's what it's all about. It's really about getting together in a room, one-on-one or with a bunch of us like-minded individuals and just having a good old time that night. That's what it's all about, man.
Yeah, go out and listen to some new music. It don't have to be all this hard stuff, which I love. I mean, don't get me wrong, but sometimes, man, you like that old school flavor.
I promise we will rock you. We will. Now, it won't be metal, but we will rock you. And then in an old school way that, that has that old school swinging groove to it that was born in the late 60s and 70s, that Rolling Stones kind of approach. That's kind of where we're coming from.
Phil, before I let you go, would you care to do a promo for my show?
Of course, I'd love to. Hey everybody, this is Phil Leavitt from 7Horse, and you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour. And what an hour it is.
Damn right. Everybody, please get out and check out our Facebook page. It has our podcast link and that YouTube link that you want to go subscribe to, because we got a lot of stuff coming up, and my TikTok page. Got a lot of video. I got 4 videos on there, and they've got I was shocked that my very first video in 24 hours got 500 some views. I was shocked.
That's incredible, man. I mean, we've been at TikTok now for 3 months. We can't break through yet.
Wow.
Even to that level, it's really hard for me
I was
right now.
I was shocked, even though it was an interview clip of Dick Verban from Megadeth, but still,
well, it's going to help a little bit.
Exactly. But anyway, folks, please support me, support Phil and 7Horse.
Thank you.
Give this band a fair shot, and hey, come back next time. We'll have some more great interviews. Phil, thank you so much for doing this interview, my man.
Thank you, John. What a pleasure it is to talk to you. Thanks so much for taking the time.
You're very welcome.
You're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.